Today is February 3rd, 2026 at exactly 2:43 a.m. I'm recording this video as a documentation of the events that transpired during 2026 of February 2nd. So let's get started. So starting in the morning, when I woke up, I used the restroom, and then when I was done, I decided to go and eat the last two pieces of pumpkin pie with a whole lot of whipped cream in the refrigerator. The Ready Whip extra creamy, if people were wondering. I decided to watch a new Ralph the Movie Maker video where he was talking about this film that starred Mark Wahlberg that was released in January of 2025, and I honestly forgot the name of it, so I'm not going to bother trying to remember it. All I can tell you was that it looked like a really cheap and poorly constructed film. The weird part was that it was directed by Mel Gibson, which is kind of odd because, I mean, the guy has been a competent enough director before with films like Hacksaw Ridge and Braveheart, but this movie looked like, I don't know, maybe he just fell out of touch with his storytelling prowess, or he just doesn't know how to direct anymore. I'm not exactly sure. Maybe he should just retire, but I don't know. Maybe he gets a big kick out of directing. But anywho, yeah, basically the whole video was the host of the channel, Ralph the Movie Maker, talking about why the film doesn't really match up to his expectations, and he goes over different clips and reasons why. It was a very funny, entertaining, and informative video that I greatly enjoyed. After watching that and finishing the two pieces of pie with a cup of coffee, I decided to pour a bowl of Cheetos, about 33 grams exactly, and 8 ounces of A&W Zero Sugar soda. And I ate the Cheetos and drank the soda while watching a Ralph the Movie Maker video about his favorite TV shows. So he was going over his favorite TV shows in this video. He was talking about shows that he liked, like comedy shows, where there was like this one Japanese show, I forget the name of it, but it's one where a bunch of professional comedians are locked in the room, and the only way for them to escape is if they can make each other laugh and the only way for them to ensure that they are the winner is that they don't laugh at the other comedians' humor or jokes. It looks like a really weird and strange show, but at the same time, it looked really fascinating and unique for sure. I definitely would be interested in checking out at least one episode to get a good grip on what that show is about. After he went through that, he went through other shows that he gave reasons for why he enjoyed, such as It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, a show that my middle sister greatly enjoys. I haven't really ever seen a full episode of It's Always Sunny, but I keep on hearing nothing but good things about the humor in that show from my middle sister, and apparently Ralph enjoys the show too, so maybe I better get on that. It would probably be a good idea. And after that, he talked about like the show South Park and how he thinks it's really good at parody and just being a really funny comedy show with these simplistic character designs that you're not supposed to take seriously, because if you try, then you're wasting your time, because it's, goofy looking simplistic drawings of these characters, So it kind of lowers your defenses, making you think that, oh, this is just silliness, and then it catches you off guard. It challenges your expectations, but in a way that is surprising and interesting, I suppose, at least based on what the host of the channel stated. Then he was gonna talk about The Sopranos, but around then I finished my Cheetos, hot Cheeto Puffs, by the way, and the soda, and I decided to instead shift gears to working on my Brain Jam Extra video project. So I went to my room, I set up my editing software, I was setting up my drawing software, and I was getting ready to do a good editing session when all of a sudden I just randomly remembered that there was an animated short that was made by SpongeBob creator Stephen Hillenburg called Hollywood Boulevard USA. Now, back when I was a young man, around 2015, I would always go and read the Wikipedia articles of artists that I enjoyed following at the time, especially in the school library. And I came across this little blurb on the Wikipedia article about the creator of SpongeBob, Stephen Hillenburg, and how he created this animated short that he showcased to a bunch of students called Hollywood Boulevard USA, and he described it as basically just trying his best to replicate as many silly walk cycles from as many different denizens of Los Angeles as he could, specifically in that area. And he said it was just a 2.5 minute animated short filled with a bunch of different walk cycles. So, and I know, like, if you're a fan of SpongeBob, you'd remember there was a lost episode, ironically, where Patchy the pirate found this treasure chest and decided to put it. Um, well, he found this VHS in a treasure chest, and if you remember the episode, there's a miner holding the treasure chest to give to Patchy. And I didn't know this until much later, but apparently that miner was actually Stephen Hillenburg giving him the tape. But he looked unrecognizable with that beard and that lighting cap on. He looked just like some random insert minor character, that just showed up to give this tape to Patchy. It was pretty interesting. But anyways, he puts this tape on, and it's basically SpongeBob doing a bunch of walk cycles to this silly music playing in the background till eventually the tape's done, and it tips off Patchy so much that he just goes into a rampage and wonders why he even was a huge fan of the show to begin with, until it's revealed that the real Lost episode comes out after the walk cycles. And the funny and interesting thing is that there's sort of a meta thing here playing with Hollywood Boulevard USA, because when those walk cycles were made, it was back in 2013, and the last major project that Stephen Hillenburg ended up working on was the second SpongeBob movie, Sponge Out of Water, in 2015, where he did help contribute story elements and write story drafts with Phil Tippett. So in a weird way, this is kind of like art reflecting life, reflecting art, because he made like Lost animation with a bunch of walk cycles, and then he ends up returning to SpongeBob one last time to have some involvement in the sequel film, Sponge Out of Water. So I just thought that that was interesting, the fact that that even happened. But anyways, so I just randomly remembered, oh yeah, is that animated short available to watch on YouTube? I searched it up, and lo and behold, it was. It was posted on a YouTube channel that I've never heard the name of, but the person on apparently fancies themselves a cartoon voice actor based on their profile name, but I'm forgetting what the profile name exactly was. And in this short, yeah, he apparently posted it a year ago in 2025. So this thing's been available to view for over a year now. And, I remember I would always go online from like 2015 all the way to around probably 2021 or 2022, frantically searching to see if like that animated short would ever pop up somewhere on the internet, especially after Hillenburg's untimely death back in 2018, where I was like, oh man, surely, someone would want to showcase his work his last major project he did on his own before his death, but it didn't ever seem to crop up. So I was like, is it just lost media now? And it is no longer lost media because it is currently available to view for free on YouTube. And I found it after doing a search. I was like, well, I've waited like 8 years for this, so I'm going to check it out. So I checked it out. And this animated short is really interesting. It's very provocative, probably one of the most provocative things that Stephen Hillenburg ever worked on. Um, I mean, it's not extremely explicit anyway. There's really only a few things that I would classify as super provocative. Like at the beginning, there was like a shop where there was some statue figures in a glass window wearing some unsavory clothing material that was extremely questionable. And then there was a few shots here and there of like ladies, like a lady walking with her butt moving up and down in a weird way. But yeah, those were like the most like eyebrow raising things about the short. It was unusual seeing that kind of thing represented in a Hillenburg animation because his previous work, which I did see stuff like wormholes and um, stuff like the Green Beret. Like, if you watch those, they're really like, what's a good word to describe them? Surreal and um, out of the box and very loose. But this one, it's still very loose, but it definitely is trying to reflect more of reality than what the previous shorts did, which they were still in a way reflecting reality, but in a more warped, cartoonist, and um, a strange way. Oh, what I did like about this animated short was the fact that Hillenburg was able to capture personality and soul with each different character he animated and how they walked. And seeing the different personalities reflected throughout the short and how each person carried themselves kind of told its own story on its own. Like you could kind of just understand and like really hone in on who these characters were in this quick little 2.5 minute short solely based on how they carried themselves. And I think that's the mark of a really awesome storyteller and someone who's really in tune with the human condition where they're able to take a look at something as simple as a walk and make it interesting and tell a funny story. And I just think that's awesome. And he even snuck in a SpongeBob cameo too, which was kind of interesting to see. It's sort of surreal in a weird way because the only thing he worked on that like was outside of SpongeBob didn't have SpongeBob in it. Rocko's Modern Life is animated short films. And then he ends up making the show and it becomes like the biggest thing ever. It affected a generation of fans, and it continues to affect a lot of fans as time goes on because it was just a really well written, well put together programming, at least when Hillenburg was completely involved in the show. And it ended up becoming Nickelodeon's cash cow, and seeing a creator sort of in a weird but indirect sort of way reflect on its success, or simply just providing a quick little wink wink cameo with someone dressed up as SpongeBob on Hollywood Boulevard near the end of the clip kind of creates sort of a weird meta like narrative of like, yeah, I did this thing and it came so big that it ended up like being a character represented on the walk. And I was never intending any of this. I was just making something I thought would make me and my friends laugh. And I just thought, man, it must be really surreal seeing something that you worked on just become that big and then like reflecting on it. And it wasn't doing it in sort of like a boastful, look at me, I made a cool thing way. It was more so in a this is the thing I did, and it's out of my control now, has a life of its own kind of way, which I think is quite interesting. But anyways, that was pretty much the short. And it was so interesting that when I heard my sister get up, my youngest sister, I asked her if she'd be interested in watching this short with me. I had already seen it. I explained to her that it was something I'd been wanting to see for a long time, and now it was available. And she agreed after making some coffee, of course. So she made some coffee, and then I made some coffee, and I got some peanut brittle brought from my middle sister, and then we sat down and we watched this animated short, which was my second time watching it. And I remember my sister's comments were all along the lines of, "It's funny not seeing like him have fish characters drawn. Like it's interesting seeing these humanoid characters being represented." Because I guess we're so used to just him being a one-hit wonder with SpongeBob that when you make something that just is so popular and then gets completely out of your hands and it ends up being in the hands of the general populace, um, it's like it becomes bigger than you, and then it ultimately just kind of becomes associated with you, eh, sort of to a detriment in a way, because it means like you're no longer seen as, oh, you're like a experimental artist that makes these things. Now you're seen as the SpongeBob guy, right? So now people, whenever they see anything you make, they're just gonna automatically default to, oh, this isn't SpongeBob, this is something else, and it is interesting seeing reactions from people who are experiencing this short, like my sister, and commenting about it in that way. Pretty interesting. And then I told her about how he made other shorts, like the Green Beret and Wormholes, and I asked her if she'd be interested in seeing those, and she said yes. So we watched the Green Beret, which was a really interesting short. It's about like a guy who's just trying to watch TV with his dog, and the TV is like supposed to be a war documentary where there's like a paper cutout animation of George Washington, the first president, like going blah 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 blah, while like guns and stuff is going off in the background, and then like there's a big knock at the door where it alerts the guy who's watching the programming, and he decides to check in on it. And what he finds is a Girl Scout, who is trying to sell her cookies to the guy with these abnormally large hands. And he's not interested, so as the girl's giving her spiel and trying to sell her product, he closes the door on her and goes back to the TV to continue watching his wartime documentary program. The Girl Scout is confused by this and decides to continue to knock on the door extremely hard, to the point where it causes the man's TV to become broken, and then eventually first house to crumble and fall to pieces. And it is later revealed that the girl had paid visits to previous houses before his in a wide shot, where all the other houses had also crumbled, and then she continues on to the next house to try to sell cookies. And when I first saw this short way back in the day, because this one had been available for a long time, it was hard for me to really understand what exactly it was trying to say. But my sister did give an explanation that I thought was quite interesting. She stated that she believed that it was a short that was trying to talk about how, like, now, like before, the original war we had to worry about was a war of literal, firing and guns and things like that. And now, the real war in the modern day and era is commercialization of of raising our youth to essentially be, business people or capitalists, and how like whether you want their product or not, they're going to try to throw it at you, and even if you don't want it, they'll find a way to get you to the point where it may cause destruction. And so it's like you buy it or you die. Um, and I thought that was a really interesting angle, and that's something that I liked about both shorts. And it's that like Hillenburg didn't put some obnoxious you know narrator saying this was a guy who did this and he did that and now he's do, and like no, he just let the moment play, and he let the audience decide for themselves what was going on so they could kind of come to their own conclusions instead. And I think I prefer that form of storytelling so much more than what was being done with what's currently being done with like how a lot of stories are being told now, where it's like don't let the scene breathe, don't let moments like shine through, just have information slapping you in the face at all times. It's like you don't need information slapping you all the time. What you need is building a scene, building atmosphere, taking a deep breath, letting things breathe, and you know getting involved in a scene. And I think that's extremely important. It leaves room for you to get associated with what is happening, and it also gives you a little room for your mind to play around with what's going on. It also gives your mind reprieve so it's not overly stimulated with too much stuff happening. So pretty cool. Moving on, the next short we watched together was Wormholes, and this one was interesting. It showed the perspective of the world of a guy driving a car with a fly in his car, and on the outside of his car was like this like town with like these weird looking creatures and cows eating food, and then they end up pooping out equations, um and there's like a diner, and it's like, to the perspective of the driver, the world seems flat, but to the perspective of the world, the driver seems flat. And so I think it was like a short that was supposed to be about like the nature of relativity, and how like the faster an object is, the shorter it is, and the slower and bigger an object is, the bigger an object is, the slower it is. And I just thought that was a fascinating concept to explore, and how it basically looks into how when we take a look at something and we have our own idea of how it transpires, based on how it's presented. Like if it goes fast, we don't have enough time to really gain insight on it, but if it goes slow, then a lot of information begins to reveal itself. So I think that's what the short may have been trying to tell, and I thought me and my sister had a really interesting talk about that. It was really cool. Then after that, I decided it would be a good time to do some brain jam, but then I needed to use the restroom, so I used the restroom, and then I did half an hour of brain jam. For a while. My mom eventually arrived. I greeted her, and we decided to spend some time together. She made a tomato sandwich. I decided to make an egg burrito with ketchup in it. And then I got dressed and ready for work, and I left, said goodbye and I love you to my mom and my sister. And I drove off to work. My shift today was 3 to 11, and let's see if there's anything interesting from work to talk about. Well, I had my pre-closer in the form of the other courtesy clerk currently working at the store that I also work at as a courtesy clerk. And I was given main closing duties. But When I checked the schedule, it was interesting. The first hour was spent on lot. The second hour was spent in the front end bagging, for which I did very happily and with a great attitude, because at the end of the day, it's all in the mind. I asked if I could go on my 10-minute break early because I was scheduled for lot for the third hour, and I was allowed that. So I did that. I refilled my water canteen. I did a little bit of breath work. And then afterwards, I got back into the building, continued bagging. Wait, no, sorry. I got my vest on. I did carts for another hour, and then I returned back into the building and did bagging for the fourth hour. Eventually, after all of that was said and done, I then punched out for lunch. I decided today I would be getting a fried chicken breast, a fried chicken drumstick, and a fried chicken wing. Originally, I wanted to also get mac and cheese, but at the time there was another person who was like walking in line to ask for something, and the other person was assisting them, and I took it as the universe's sign to tell you you don't need all that food, and also you should save a little more money. I was like, okay, fine. So I took the chicken and I went and purchased it up in the front. I decided to get a Coke Zero to go along with it in a plastic bottle. And the total amount was like $9.48, which is 48 cents above what I'm trying to keep as my minimum per day spending. So yeah, that was a little annoying, but hey, no big deal. Just got to make sure that I only spend like about $8 and something cents tomorrow. So yeah, like $8.52, I suppose. Yeah. All right. Well, I went upstairs. I had my 3 pieces of chicken. Interesting thing about the chicken was the first one was really juicy. It was really tender. The skin was really crispy, had a good flavor. I just enjoyed the first piece all around. But the next 2 pieces, the skin became a little bit on the wet side. Like it was more of a wet crisp instead of a pure dry crispy crisp, which was annoying. And I mean, it was still fairly tender inside those 2 other pieces, but it certainly wasn't like as good as the first piece, which was a bit of a disappointment. But they were still good and very flavorful. And I was watching a video from Jesse Michaels of the doctor, the neurosurgeon who apparently saw the extraterrestrial being during the Virginia UFO case, being interviewed. And apparently, the most interesting bit of data that came from that interview was that apparently the guy, the neurosurgeon, had a friend who did a operation on the being and even recorded it on video and put it on a CD, and he would show his friends and everyone. So that means there's like corroborating like evidence where other people had seen the footage, and on top of that, like the footage is apparently somewhere out there, like on a CD. Hopefully, not succumbing to disc rot because that would suck. But if that footage can be maintained and brought to light, then that would be great, because that would be some first time there'd be some hard physical proof that there is indeed some form of life out there, or at least some form of life here that has been hiding from us for a while, because that would be awesome. But I guess only time will tell. Apparently, James Fox, the guy who created the documentary about the Virginia UFO case, Moment of Contact, is apparently been extremely hard at work trying to find the footage. So yeah, let's hope he does, because I want to see it right now. But anywho, after watching that and eating, it was time to go back downstairs. So I went back downstairs. I punched back in. I pretty much had the rest of the time bringing carts in, wiping down check stands, then bringing 16 carts into the store with all of the signs and the cleaner and cleaner wipes. I wiped down chick stands 7, 6, 5. The cashier wiped down 4 and 3, and my coat closer wiped down 1, 2, and 8. Originally, I assigned number 7 to my coat closer, but he was working on sweeps at the time, so I decided to fill in for 7 to lighten the load for him. After all was said and done and everything was put away, the weird thing about today was that apparently we had more black carts, short carts, than normal. Not exactly sure what that was about, because normally we have less of those carts than we do. So maybe they ordered a lot. Not exactly sure about that. But anyways, I punched out. I said goodnight to my co-cashier and my co-manager. My co-closer left an hour earlier. And there was some funny conversations that were had during the whole last few hours. I guess the most funny thing was, like, you know how we have, I was asking this question to the cashier, you know how we have these elections where people have to go on a campaign trail and like make speeches and whatever? Enough talk. How about we instead like have like a, true Olympian sort of task for any potential presidential nominee, where like they actually need to prove their skills in order to like move up the ranks to become the prime elective candidate for their party. Like, they start out with like something like a quiz show, or doing some gymnastics or whatever, ridiculous, silly things like that. And of course, I was saying all this as a silly joke, but my cashier co-closer thought it was too ridiculous and silly. And I thought, hey, I mean, if I was voting for someone, I'd be 10 times more likely to vote for them if I saw that they knew exactly what they were doing and could practice what they preach, it would increase my chances of voting for sure. So, I don't know. I just thought it was a funny idea. But anywho, and then we talked about like stuff like Neuralink and how you could combine that with AI and download all the world's information into your brain with it, and have like a level 10,000 IQ without having to go to college. So yeah, stuff like that was pretty interesting conversations. But yeah, like I said, punched out, said goodbye to the cashier and my co-boss. I drove off home. When I arrived at home, my sister made a cake with real buttercream frosting. So butter, cream cheese, oat milk, powdered sugar, but a controlled amount, not too much sugar. So it didn't taste overtly sweet, just a tinge of sweetness with more of a creaminess in there. And it was a really good carrot cake, and she even cut up bits of carrots and mixed them into the batter. And I greatly enjoyed it. I guess it was my dinner for tonight, even though I guess the chicken was also my dinner, but this was a really good dessert, I suppose. I ate it with my family friend, my mom, and my sister. I made a cup of coffee to go along with it. And then Malcolm and Malcolm ran into my mom's room. I decided to try to find him. When I saw him, he jumped on my mom's bed, and I decided to pet him. My mom came in, my sister came in with our black cat Call Me, and we put them together and we were petting them. I even filmed some footage and took pictures of them because it was just so cute. And then we left them, and my sister decided to go on a walk. My mom and I decided to watch a new Y-Files about the gravity being turned off for 7 seconds, which would be an extremely devastating and a horrific circumstance if that were to ever happen. Thankfully, it is confirmed that won't happen. But there is something that is a little scary. And on my ride home, I was listening to a guy who was researching the latest in sun activity, and he said that there's like potential for a solar flare that might reset society and destroy all modern electronics, which is a scary thought. Could you imagine like all of humanity just being erased overnight, all because the sun felt like it? Like, yikes. So yeah, pretty spooky stuff. But anyways, yeah, we watched this new Y-Files, me and my mom, and it was pretty good. It was about this um, this secret NASA program that apparently will shut off gravity for 7 seconds and cause people to float before eventually being turned off on again and everyone falling down. But um, ultimately, it was a big hoax perpetuated through TikTok. So but it was a engaging story while it was being described. Like, usually when it comes to devastating stories like that, I'm actually relieved to hear that it's not true at the end, because I'm like, oh my gosh, you were freaking me out there, AJ, and now you're telling me it's not true. Oh, thank goodness. Now, if it's for something having to do with like extremely powerful like technology that's being hidden from the public, and then it said, oh, but is it true? Then I'm like, oh man, gosh dang it, I got excited. But if it's something like this, I'm actually excited when it's not true. So funny how that works out. If it's an existential threat, I'm excited it's not true. But if it's cool technology, then I'm bummed out that it's not real. No, yeah. But after watching that, my mom went to sleep. I decided to stay up and I went on YouTube. I watched people being interviewed about Area 51 and showing some UFO footage from Mexico, which was kind of interesting. And then I decided to watch some Mystery Science Theater 3000 before my sister showed up. And after all of that, I decided I was getting really sleepy, so I turned off the TV, I took my vitamins, I brushed my teeth. I did 15 minutes, but it actually extended into 20 minutes of line work right here. This is a still frame of my mom snuggling our cat, Malcolm. Pretty cool. And then I showed my sister, I said goodnight to her, and then I decided to record this update video. So that's pretty much the day in a nutshell. I think the one thing I missed though was I was listening to a Monroe Explorer series tape. I forget which one exactly. I think it was something about healthy eating or medicine. And as I was listening to that, right in between after doing the editing and eating the egg sandwich and egg burrito, not sandwich, and going to work, I was listening to that report while juggling. So yeah, there's another detail for you. But now we have reached the end of today, and overall it was a really good day. I'm glad I got a little bit more work done. I'm hoping to get more work done for my Brain Jam Extra channel tomorrow, and um, I once again work from 3 to 11, so it's going to be a pretty stacked day later, but in the morning, hopefully there will be a lot of work done on my personal project goals, so that should be cool. So thank you for tuning in and watching. I greatly appreciate it, and I will see you in the next video. Take care, everybody, and have a good night. Goodbye.